Hi. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit. I just got back from the gym, so I'm still a little sweaty. Sat down to do some math, learned a little bit of code this morning, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about reading and how this has changed my life. Um, I'm I'm not really I'm not really the kind of person that you would associate with coding or math or reading. These are all relatively new things for me. I tend to prefer being with people and going out and doing things, and I'm not as much an outdoorsy person. I grew up in the city. I'm learning to be more outdoorsy, but I like to do events and activities and get together with people and talk. And if you haven't noticed, I talk a lot. And in the past, I struggled a lot with anxiety and depression, really deep anxiety and depression. And I've been through, all the help methods, psychiatry, psychology, like religion, all those things. And, after decades of it, none of it really, really helped me deep down. It gave me tools, but nothing really sunk deep inside of me. And then a couple of years ago, a friend really drove this book home to me that I just needed to read. And I was like, yeah, I just need to figure this out. And I wasn't really into the idea of reading the book. I hadn't really read since I was younger and finished Harry Potter when early 20s when the last book came out. Wasn't really a reader. I didn't really read grown-up books. And I say grown-up books because adult books sounds like something different. And it took me about a half dozen times with this friend pushing me to read this book. And it changed my life. It's not a book where you need to read it too. You got to read this book. It's going to change your life. But interestingly enough, reading books is what changed my life. That book was just the start. That book was that personal friend reference of what I needed to get my life in order. And since then, I fell in love. I got married. I've started living my dreams, working as an entrepreneur, transitioning from a career as a consultant to being a leader, coming to know myself, understand myself, getting my life in order, losing over 100 pounds, close to 150 pounds now. And, in my own time, in my own way, having the confidence to just come out and be who I am and come alive and say my mind, speak my mind and help more people, help myself more. And as I was getting into these, new habits like reading, and it ebbed and flowed for a few years, and finally first year I've read, more than a book a month, and it's been 2.5 books a month this year. And that's almost 3 times what I read, actually more than 4 times what I read last year, and about twice as much as what I read the year before. And like I said, it ebbs and flows. And now I'm learning code, something I used to think would be impossible for me to learn. And I'm caught up on all the math. I dropped out of high school. I never made it past pre-algebra. And now I'm learning algebra and geometry and pre-calculus, learning I love statistics and probability. And I'm just filled with life. And now I want to share this with people. And I'm running into problems because I started talking about these books and wanting to share them with people. And I would say I've got a copy of the ebook or the audiobook that I could share with you. And people were uncomfortable with that. And it made me a little nervous, I was doing something wrong. And I'm is this piracy? And I looked it up and I read it, and I'm okay, it's not illegal to share your digital copies of things. It doesn't break the Digital Millennial Copyright Act to share your things if you're not monetizing the share. So it's just sharing a DVD or sharing, a hard copy book. But for whatever reason, people felt like it was wrong, and it made me feel like it was wrong to share this kind of stuff. And when I offered to share a physical copy of these books, people were fine with it. And I was okay, this is weird. Why are people okay with receiving a physical copy, like this is going to get really expensive. Like, holy cow, like it doesn't cost any more money to share a digital copy as it does to store it on a digital device. But if I want to copy a book to share and help more people, boy, like I better be wealthy like, a government or a religion who can afford to, share books for free and really just, charge people for not coming back or not bringing books back. And at this point, I'm like, shoot, how can I help more people without being independently wealthy? And because if I'm running into this problem, other people are running into this problem. And if it's not illegal and it's not actually technically wrong to share digital copies, if you're not making money off of sharing, otherwise, if you're making money off of sharing, it's not sharing, it's selling. So if I'm not breaking any laws by sharing, then, how do I change that? How can I afford to help people without without starting a religion or starting a government to have libraries of books to share with new members or citizens? And I'm like, this has been something that's really I've been struggling with. So I decided to take it upon myself to upload my entire ebook and audiobook library onto cloud storage so that I could more easily share it with people. And when I ran into this problem, I'm like, man, did I just waste a whole bunch of time? And then I realized, why do I care about these books that are helping me? Because people are taking the time to not just make something useful, but share their story and be vulnerable about why they're doing this. And that's it. When a real person shares their why, that's the kicker. That's when people are like, wow, this is so much different than, someone who's dead and gone telling us what worked for them a long time ago. Like this is real. And so I've put something together to share with you, and I really suggest, if you discover a new author, support them. If it helps you, buy the book. If it helps you, go to their signings and buy a copy of their book and get them to sign it and thank them. But you know what? We don't need to pay for ideas. Ideas are only valuable until they're shared, and then their half-life is over. And the same thing holds true to books, where creators who make these things, they're not just going to make one. There's so many ideas out there. So, you can support them after you supported yourself. And that's really important, because at that point, that's why the laws are set out to deter you from taking advantage of systems like this and gaining from, anything other than the idea or the knowledge. So that's it. Share the knowledge. There's nothing wrong with it. That's why, it's not a bad thing for people to share their Bibles for free or share their religious texts for free, or for libraries to share books for free and accept donated books and get discounted versions from publishers. And at the end of the day, they're essentially doing it for free. And they're giving opportunities to, people who want to read, but there's also limited supplies, even of the digital copies. And this stranglehold is hurting a society that's craving knowledge, that's craving inspiration, that's craving community and need people to inspire them. And when the most popular books only have a few copies at libraries, even the digital versions, that's, it's not about right or wrong. It's about, somewhere in between, what's not wrong and what's not right. And that's not right. And that's something we have to fix. And we can't do it by changing the system. They have too much money. They have too much power. But we can change it on a grassroots level by sharing what we have. I can share my library with you, and you can share your library with others. And we can do this to help others help themselves. And it will go back to the creatives. It's inevitable. I mean, so many people, even Neil Gaiman, one of the most famous authors, talks about how piracy helped him sell more books. And then you start to realize, is it piracy if it's just sharing? And that's one of the things he asked himself. And it's actually helpful. Sharing is helpful. Sharing is marketing. Sharing is, spreading the word. It's just as useful as a review. It's actually more useful to gain fans, which creatives need to do more and create more. And that's a good thing.